So, like many of you, Friday night was rough. As soon as I heard that Justice Ginsburg had died, I had a barrage of emotions. And they all happened really quickly, like just right on top of each other. But if I had to pull them apart, the first one was kind of like, seriously, 2020? Like, you've taken away so much. Now the notorious RBG? Really? Then there was sadness for the woman who I didn't know personally, but I fell in love with her anyway. I watched the movie about her, from her iridescent collar to her push-ups to how much cancer she willed herself to survive through. And we were already hoping that she could make it a little bit longer, but really, this woman, how much did she give us already? But then right on the top of that, I felt dread, true dread. And I was angry that I didn't get the time to mourn the human being before I had the dread about our system. And the thoughts of, what does this mean? And when I thought through what did it mean, I knew that the situation was quite dire. Now, I consider myself to be a reasonable person who doesn't get into crisis mode too easily, and I try not to resort to hyperbole too quickly. But this is the most important election of my lifetime. And lives are on the line. And we, as people of faith, those of us who are religiously liberal, we have an obligation, a moral obligation, to act like our lives depend on this election, because they do. Now, first of all, I just want to be clear. Because of our nonprofit status, we are a religious institution. The congregation, nor I as its spokesperson, are supposed to support a specific candidate. But we are allowed to talk about issues that are important to us. And I'm going to be very clear. I am going to dance right up to that line. I know that it may upset people by me doing that. And right now, that is a risk that I am willing to take. There is too much riding on this. On the national scale, we have a president who is stoking daily fires of racism, using all of his words and tweets to invoke fear of Black people and protesters, and using his military power to attack his own citizens. He has locked up thousands of immigrants in inhumane conditions and wants to be celebrated for it. He consciously did not use his powers to prevent this country from losing 200,000 souls. As of yesterday, we hit 200,000. And he is still refusing to take responsibility for the welfare of this country's population. He denies climate change while we are watching our world burning. And make no mistake, he will be determined to placate his one-issue voters by appointing a Supreme Court justice who is willing to repeal Roe versus Wade and take away a woman's choice to make her own difficult decisions about her body. This is all before a re-election. I shudder at the thought of what he would do in a second term with no re-election consequences. But I also want to be clear that this is not just a national election that is important. We have a ton of local consequences as well. We have a special election Senate race where the winner will be installed as early as late November, which could be the vote that could make or break the appointing of a new Supreme Court justice. It's the only Senate seat in the country where the election could impact that. And we are looking at 3 to 4 people who could change it, and Arizona's senator could be one. In Phoenix, there is a very important vote for the Attorney General, the position that will decide on rules for our local police, whether they should be focusing on de-escalation techniques and whether they will be supporting community oversight. This position is very important for how we hold our police accountable for how they support our communities. And this congregation has been very involved in Proposition 208, the Invest in Ed proposition. Currently, Arizona is suffering from the worst classroom crisis in our history. We have the nation's highest teacher turnover, the most crowded classrooms, the second lowest teacher salaries, even after recent investments. We're 46th in per student spending. And so many teachers have quit that over 70,000 kids have no permanent teacher right now. And this problem has grown for 20 years. An entire generation of children have now paid the price. State lawmakers could have chosen to solve this crisis. They've had every chance to. They just haven't wanted to. And now some of these same people are trying to tell us that the solution on our November ballots is no good, that we can't afford to fund our public schools. It would be funny if it weren't so sad. We know that investing in public education means more kids graduating from college, higher per capita incomes, a stronger workforce, a healthy middle class, and a robust economy. Strong neighborhood schools are the key to the American dream. You can't afford and invest in schools, they say. The truth is that we can't afford not to. So despite what they say, the solution to our problem is not complicated. It's time to pull our state out of last place and finally fund our public schools. So please vote yes to Proposition 208 and invest in ed. And all of these things doesn't even include all the congressional races, the state races, the school board races, the tax acts. The vote is making a difference in your community. In Arizona, we have 2 more weeks for voter registration. I encourage you to talk to everyone you know. You never know who isn't registered to vote. But these are all the facts. You can learn all these. I'm actually assuming when I talk to many of us in the congregation that you all know this. You can learn them by reading the newspaper or by looking them up. I want to talk about the election as a moral obligation as religious liberals. As a Unitarian Universalist, we are guided by 7 principles, hopefully 8 soon, but that's another sermon. Our 5th principle says that we promote and affirm the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. We are the fighters for all people using your own conscience and promoting democracy. And that's what the the Vote initiative has been about. This is an initiative started by our Unitarian Universalist Association president and former minister here at UUCP, Reverend Susan Frederick Gray. It's an initiative that says that this is no time to sit it out or play it safe. It is an opportunity to put our values in action. 2 years ago, I was part of one of the very first initiatives of the Vote. I was in Florida at the time, and it was one of the 4 states in the US that removed forever the right to vote for anyone convicted of a felony. You could have served your time, you could have paid your fees, you could have done all the things right that the system said to do, and you could never again vote in your life. The rule, by its nature and by the carceral program itself, disenfranchised 4 million people in Florida, many of them people of color. It was one of the tools that was put in place right after the Civil War to keep Blacks from voting. And it kept going until 2 years ago. What a convenient way to suppress the vote. Amendment 4, the Voting Restoration Act, was something that the Unitarian Universalist Association invested in. I got to go to an organizing weekend, hear people's stories, and work with organizers. Now, I pride myself on being a progressive, but it is the first time in my life that I actually did phone calling for an election. But it was so easy that I actually organized phone calling parties. You know me, I'll turn anything into a party. And I found out how easy it was to do text reminders on election day. And Amendment 4 passed with 66% of the vote. It was so empowering to say that I had done what I could to make it happen. It's a different kind of celebration when you are a part of it. So I want to give you some specific opportunities to do something for this very important election. You can sit and wring your hands and worry and feel bad about the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, or you can act. There are 6 things. 5 of them have resources attached. Those resources are in last week's Compass on Friday. They will be in Tuesday's Compass, and they will be listed here in the chat at the end of the sermon so you can find them easily. They cover a whole range of comfort abilities and time availabilities. I've tried to pick the ones, with help from the civic engagement team, that everyone can do at least one. Number 1, it's most important. Talk to your family, friends, and coworkers. The deadline to register to vote is October 4th. Ask your coworkers if they're registered. Ask your friends. Don't assume. I spoke to somebody just a few weeks ago who told me that his family never voted. He didn't think of it as something that one did. He just never signed up. And he didn't think he could make a difference. Well, that person sent me their voter registration last week. Find that person. 2, you can volunteer to be a poll worker. Arizona actually does 85% of its voting by mail, but there are still poll stations, and many of them have historically had older people working in them. That is just not safe this year. So there is a shortage of poll workers. So if this fits with your risk standards, please support our democracy by being a poll worker. 3, we have a lot of our congregants writing postcards to voters in many states, encouraging them to vote. It's actually really easy. Vote Forward is the organization. They tell you who to do, they give you ideas for it, and while you're sitting there watching TV or doing whatever, you can write a few postcards. Easy. 4, if you have money to give, there are lots of ways to give money, but I am going to give you one way that you can make a difference right now. Those disenfranchised voters in Florida that I told you about, they got the right to vote 2 years ago, but the courts have been sticklers to make sure that everyone has paid off every single fee before they can vote. And some of those people do not have that money. These are people who want to vote in a swing state, and a simple decision to pay off their fees can make that happen. They're only halfway to their goal of paying off the fines, but the deadline is September 24th. So think about that. 5, phone banking is easier than you think it is. There's a script and you're connected to only phones where people answer. And yes, I'm not going to lie, the first couple are intimidating, but then you can get some really amazing conversations and connect to real human beings. There are almost daily phone banking opportunities at UU The Vote. And 6, if you are up for specific work in the Phoenix area, I don't know if any of you remember that map I showed you a few weeks ago of the Phoenix neighborhoods that have less than 50% voter turnout. Valley Interfaith Project is targeting a few of those neighborhoods and trying to improve those turnout numbers in our own community. This is a hyper-local effort in Phoenix, so there will be a link for that one as well. And there are so many more ways. These are just a few in case you can't find them on your own, but if you believe that this is an important election, please do something. One thing. I'm telling you that there's nothing better than the feeling that you were part of a change after Election Day. And as many of us know, there is nothing worse than the day after an election day when you wonder if you could have done something more to change the outcome. So we've talked about why it's important, and we've talked about specific things that you can do. But now I want to talk about our moral compass as Unitarian Universalists. And I want to talk about the angst and anxiety that I know so many of you are feeling right now. I hear it from you. I see the tiredness in your eyes. I see the worry. I want us to remember the first line of the covenant that we recite each week. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. Love. Our UUA social justice arm is called Side with Love. And I've thrown out there that I think the theme for this year should be Lead in Love, from the hymn that we're going to be closing with today. Love, my dear ones, is what more of this process needs more of. We are doing this because we are the ones who lead with love. Because we believe that every person has worth and dignity. Because we believe that how we show love in the world is to fight for the rights of the most marginalized. Because we are a religious organization, it is our moral duty. It is, yes, our civic duty as citizens, but as religious liberals, it is our moral duty. But sometimes we need that reminder. Sometimes it is way too easy to shift to fear. There is so much to be afraid of what kind of damage can happen if the administration gets 4 more years, of how many more people will die of COVID, of what will happen to our climate. These are legitimate fears. But dwelling in fear is not going to get anything done. Dwelling in action and remembering that we are trying to provide a counterpoint of love. Sometimes it is way too easy to shift to anger and hate. I've had a few of you ask how we find the worth and dignity of certain political figures that have done so much harm. And when people say that Unitarian Universalism is an easier faith, I remind them of that first principle, and that it is one of the most challenging spiritual work that we will ever do. We can do this work in love. We can do it without body shaming the people we are trying to get out of office. We can do it without demeaning of the elect and calling them stupid or writing them off. We can do it while still being in relationship with people and showing our love. We can say that we have our values and principles without screaming at our family and friends. I'm not saying it's easy, but I do encourage you to lead with love, not anger, not hate, not fear. Motivation, yes, but remember what you are for, not just what you are against. And finally, I need you all to know that I am praying for you in my UU way. I know that some of you are so worried and so anxious about this, and it is overflowing into so much of your life. It is just all too much. On top of the fear and isolation of the pandemic, at the same time that you're trying to work and teach your children, on top of the fires and the hurricanes, on top of your own personal challenges, and then the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. It is all just too much. There are, ironically, 45 days, just 45 more days. Take some action, do one or two things, then turn off the news. Do something to take care of yourself. Stay connected here at UUCP and know that you are not alone. We will get through this together. Know that whatever happens on election day, we will be gathering to process it the next day, no matter what. In this great turning, this democratic turning, we must believe that we can lead in love. We must believe that love wins. We must continue to fight for the issues that we know in our heart that are the loving ways to respond to our fellow human beings and to the earth all around us. Act. Be. Love.
Thank you, Christine. Amen. Whew. So, in this great turning, let's learn to lead in love. Those are lyrics from a song called We Shall Be Known by the duo Mamuse. Let's sing it together. The lyrics are in the chat. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. Let's see the whole thing again. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. Thanks, everyone.
In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love. So before closing words, please come to coffee hour after the service. It's lots of fun. It's great to see people. I have heard so many of you who've said that they've gotten to know people that they never would have gotten to meet in service or regular coffee hour. Visitors, we hope you'll join us. We are a friendly bunch. There is also a coffee hour just for our kiddos and their families. And a reminder to please keep checking on each other. Our closing words are from Octavia Butler. The one irresistible force in the universe is change. Everything in the universe changes. Every living thing, every bit of matter, all the energy in the universe changes in some way. All that you touch, you change. All that you change changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change. So my beloveds, call, text, write, engage, make change. So might it be.